AskReddit by Moonduster 9908. Serious, what are your thoughts on euthanasia, right to die? Attention, serious, tag notice. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted. https://www.reddit.com/r/wiki/index-wiki_rule_6 in any comment parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit. Message compose $? to =r AskReddit if you have any questions or concerns. As someone who worked in nursing homes, please for the love of God let me be euthanized. I made it 3 days. They cut off a patient leg to save her life and she cried for her missing leg all night long. I couldn't take it. Bless you for being a stronger, better person. When I was young I had strong qualms and was generally opposed. But later in life, watching my fiercely independent and proud mother reduced to being an invalid and totally dependent on others changed my mind. She often talked about how she wished it were available then. She was just waiting to die. She could have gone with dignity instead of lying in a heap on the bathroom floor when she tried to go to the bathroom on her own. My mum is gone, but a husk remains. Going through the last breaths for years, barely living, but not dying. Alzheimer's, dementia suck. My body, my choice applies to more than abortion. Exactly this. If you don't have autonomy for your own life, you don't have any rights that matter. We have mercy on our pets when they are suffering. Why can't we do the same for people? The government don't want you to leave till they squeeze you for all you're worth. When my GSD developed a tumor on her tongue, we were able to schedule an appointment for the next weekend, and she walked into the vet for the last time with her own strength. When my grandfather's MRSA pneumonia got to the point there wasn't much else we could do, they gave him enough morphine to keep an elephant sedated, refused to give him food or water, and gave him a sponge on a stick to suck on when his mouth got dry. It took him a week to die in the hospital bed. The fact that we can give our animals a better quality of death than we can our loved ones sickens me. I will be pro-euthanasia until I die. GSD? German Shepherd Dog? Pro. If someone is suffering it should be their call to end it. We didn't choose to come here, we should be allowed to leave if our suffering and by association, the suffering of our loved ones, is too great. You cannot possibly say you are pro-freedom if you are anti-euthanasia, it is the ultimate freedom. I'm at the age where I've seen a fair number of loved ones pass from a variety of geriatric and terminal conditions. What I've learned from that is, I would like the choice in the end. Especially if I know I have something terminal or chronic in a way that severely impacts my quality of life. Pro. Watching my grandfather die of suffocation while cancer spread through his neck was terrible. He was 93 and refused health treatments cause he didn't want to live anymore. It took 10 months in hospice for him to pass. He'd ask us, when is my turn to die? He was in absolutely pristine mental condition, which kinda made it worse. Mine literally starved to death. He had esophagus cancer. Took 2-ish weeks. Should be legal everywhere. Everyone who disagrees probably never had a loved one go through a terminal illness that only caused them pain all the time. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand we euthanize either way. Your parents' grandparents can have a serious talk with their doctors and explore a relatively pain-free euthanasia plan. or they can have the same conversation with the same doctor and go through a pretty painful and uncomfortable couple of weeks where their food water is cut off and they slowly waste away. Their only respite being that they can ask to be drugged out of their minds to alleviate the discomfort during this process. The decision to end life is happening either way. I've experienced depression and, unfortunately, met certain people who didn't help. Best thing I can say is they weren't meant for this world. I've also worked with animals and seen the difference between those owners who held on to cats screaming in pain and shitting themselves, unable to move from their mess and wasting away due to cancer, force feeding them and unable to let them die for purely selfish reasons, versus the relief of a peaceful euthanasia. All of this experience leads me to this. If someone wants to go out on their own terms, I'd never hold it against them. Yes, it would make me sad, but I know better than to take it personally. So much of the moral issues around suicide and euthanasia are purely people taking it personally when it likely has nothing to do with whether or not they were loved by the person they are missing. No, the survivors probably couldn't have done more and aren't failures because their family couldn't just sweep their own shit under the rug and get better. I know people like to think they have their loved one's best interest in mind, but closer examination always shows valuing their own feelings over the experience of the individual who wants to die. I could never do that to someone I love. That's all. I really hope this shit is legal when I'm old. Why do we have to suffer, shit ourselves, aspirate our food, mentally degrade in front of loved ones, or alone? This may sound morbid, but personally, I will always ensure I have a way out if my health takes a turn like that in a permanent way. I will not allow that decision to be made by anyone else. Personally, I think laws should be about protecting people from each other, not from themselves. I think it's authoritarian and a violation of human rights to prevent someone from making a decision that only affects themselves. The fact that suicide in and of itself is still considered illegal in so many places is weird to me. How does making it illegal help anyone? As long as the person who wants it is capable of making an informed decision, then it should be legal. If someone has a terminal or life-limiting condition, I'm pro-euthanasia. However, proper safeguards need to be in place, such as needing a second opinion on diagnosis. This is what I read about MAID for treatment-resistant mental illness in the Netherlands, and it looks like the process is full of safeguards to ensure that the patient is aware of and consenting to MAID. MAID is only an option if the patient requests it themselves. All reasonable treatment options have been exhausted, and both the government and an independent psychiatrist specialized in said mental illness sign off on the patient's request. I might have missed a few other details, so anybody PLS feel free to correct me. Pro. Death with dignity is an idea we need to embrace, especially as healthcare costs, gaslighting by medical personnel, etc. keeps getting worse and worse. Was very grateful to vote to legalize it when I lived in WA. It is insane to me we don't allow it at minimum for the elderly and already dying. There are people out there suffering so much. Months or years of agony, and we won't let them just peacefully slip away when they and their family all wanted to stop the pain. Not to mention how aged care is a huge cost on everyone. Maybe our groceries and housing wouldn't be half as shitty if we weren't spending $200k a year keeping each dying person alive who doesn't even want to live. In a way, we do allow it in the form of a DNR order. But I agree, you shouldn't need to go into cardiac arrest first to have the choice, especially in too very late years. My state has a death with dignity law. It isn't called euthanasia. No one is killing the terminally ill patient, which is the textbook definition of euthanasia. Instead, the cocktail of drugs is prescribed, and it must be self-administered. In order to get this prescribed, you must have 2 doctors vouch that you have 6 months or less to live. You then have to have a specialist talk with you, and then they will approve the prescription. They don't list the drug as the cause of death on your death certificate, the underlying illness is listed. You are merely choosing your time of death. Many who get this prescription never end up taking it, but it gave them comfort knowing they had an out if things became unbearable. Oregon? That's pretty much the rules here, anyway. It's one of the reasons I'm glad to live here. Yeah, that's the big thing. Even if they never use it, and as you correctly say, they often don't. Just knowing they have the option, knowing it's their choice, their agency. They can choose to go. And they can choose to stay. It lifts a weight. It's a measure of comfort at a time when that's sorely needed. Agency is such a big deal when you've lost control over so much. Absolutely should be legal. We do it for our animals as the last gift we can give them so that they don't have to suffer. Why would we be any different? All for it. I will die of COPD. Not catching a breath is not how I want to go. After seeing many people at the end of their lives, I am 100% pro. We should be in charge of our bodies. The only reason we do not have humane euthanasia for humans is because of the religious nuts. Edited for my typo. Don't have? Strongly in favor of it. Absolutely everyone should have the right and the ability to end their life on their terms. Seeing your loved ones suffer because they don't have access to euthanasia is fucking awful. As humans, our bodies make it our choice, right? Why can't we have the decision to do anything, including that? I totally understand why someone wouldn't want to endure the tortures of a prolonged death process. We are far more merciful to our beloved animals than to our fellow human beings. I'm for it with a few stipulations. If you are physically terminally ill, you should have the right to choose a more peaceful, orderly, and dignified end. Settle your affairs, say your goodbyes, and go under more peaceful circumstances instead of waiting around to suffer until the end. If you're suffering greatly due to some mental illness, you should have the option, but only after it's medically agreed that all other attempts at treatment have failed.